Hi everyone, welcome to the Startup Operators Weekly Roundup, where Gunjan, Saha, and Roshan will be taking you through the biggest developments from the startup ecosystem in India from last week. This week has been really interesting, a lot of action-packed deals, and we also, had a great celebration for Durga Puja. But I think Roshan, something that must have been your highlight would have been the IPL games, right? What did you think of the final?
No, for sure. I always find it fascinating when people who have achieved, a certain level of greatness come back year after year, month after month, and perform at their peak. Right? I mean, Dhoni to me is that one person. I mean, there isn't anything that the person has not achieved, right? And still, you look at him on the field, he's perhaps more alert and more enthusiastic than any 22 or 23-year-old out there, right? So, which is amazing, like an amazing testament to him as a person, right? So fantastic. Yeah, I mean, CSK won for the fourth time. I'm an RCB fan, so I mean, no comments on that. And it's good to see all of the optimism, all of the celebration. So this whole week has been a very pleasant change. I mean, after 18, 19 months of sheer drudgery and a lot of the uh, tragic news that we often had, right? I mean, the cases have been hovering around 20K. I mean, there should be a small uplift right now, I think, but hopefully nothing alarming. But it was a very nice thing to see people celebrating. And, again, some of the small business owners, hawkers, and these kind of people have been very, very badly hit in the economy because of COVID. Good to see them, hopefully revive their fortunes as well. So, yeah, excellent week.
It also has been a good outlet of energy, also the pent-up energy that have been building up. People had a chance to, go out and just have fun.
Absolutely.
Okay, but in the startup ecosystem, there were a couple of red flags, right? So Dream 11, they were forced to suspend its operations in Karnataka as, there was an FIR filed against them for violating the Karnataka Gaming Ban. The FIR was filed against the founders, Harsh, Jan, and Bhavit Seth, which followed a complaint that the firm had continued to offer gaming services on its platform 1 week after the Karnataka state government notified the new rules disallowing what it termed as a game of chance. This new law came into effect in October 5th, and it bans online games that are considered to be games of chance in nature. It makes operations, a betting or sheltering of online games involving exchange of money, betting and wagering cognizable and a non-bailable offense. But Dream 11 isn't the only one. Even Mobile Premier League, Paytm First Games, Games 24/7, and others were forced to deactivate their platforms for users in Karnataka. But we're talking about IPL, and I think the T20 World Cup is also just around the corner. And this gaming ban is like a huge setback for these companies, right? And
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, we have
Yeah.
seen how fantasy game has been rising in India. So how do you see this will impact going forward?
No, it's unfortunate timing on the part of the companies, right? I mean, at the height of the cricket season, no less. And I think the primary contention here is that Section 78, right, which is whether this is a game of chance or game of skill. And because of the conflation, even online games of common games like crossword, chess, or Sudoku may be considered as a wager or a bet, right? And Supreme Court has once clarified, and the gaming companies have come out on top on that. But the states are not very sure about it, and I think this is pretty unfortunate in that sense. um, so I think hopefully the regulation will have to be sorted out, right, to define these things properly. And once that happens, I think there'll be a lot more clarity, and it can encourage some more innovation and stuff. So there was a pretty interesting article by Ramesh Kailasam, who's the CEO of India Tech, on this. I'd encourage everyone to definitely have a look at that for sure.
But despite that, the government has been, continuously pushing for innovations within the startups and private sector. I mean, in a boost to the Atmanirbhar Bharat program, the government on Friday, on the occasion of Vijay Dashami, gave orders, worth over 65,000 crore to seven new government-owned defense companies that were carved out of the Ordnance Factory Board. All the orders that were pending with the Ordnance Factory have been converted into contracts to ensure that sufficient workload with the new entities dedicated the nation at a function organized by the Ministry of Defense. The seven companies are Munitions India Limited, Armored Vehicles Nigam Limited, Advanced Weapons and Equipment India Limited, Troop Comforts Limited, Yantra India Limited, India Optal Limited, and Gliders India Limited. These companies have been operational since October 1st. And I think it's a really great step that the government is pushing, for growth and brand value, to build India's growth and brand value in the international markets, right? By investing in R&D and innovation. So do you think going forward, we'll see more similar pushes by the government in other industries?
Yeah. So this is long pending and it's huge, really, really huge, right? I mean, starting with the 70s with the Arun Singh report, right, under the VP Singh government, basically. Starting from then, I mean, committee after committee, report after report has mentioned that, this is long due because the Ordnance Factory Board is a relic from, a couple of 100 years back. Basically, they function as another department of the government with a captive customer, right? And you may ask, what is the difference between what's happening now, where they've been carved into PSUs, and earlier, right, where they were a department of the government? As a department of the government, there was a one captive customer, which is the Indian Army or the Air Force and so on, right? And so there was little competition. There was no competition, in fact. There was no price discovery. There were no contracts, in fact. I mean, you went and, it's like a go down or something, right? Where you go and indent your entries or requests and stuff, ki itna liya, itna chahiye types, right? So, I mean, the performance has been pretty pathetic, right? There were lots of delays, a lot of inefficiencies and stuff like that. Now, converting these people or these factories into the 7 PSUs required a lot of political capital, which I'm really happy that the government is using that, large mandate that they have to, push some of this through, right? Because it's not a very easy thing. It's quite difficult because there are some 80,000 people employed. Although, I mean, they've been assured that, there won't be any changes as such. It is definitely going to disrupt, life as usual, right? And unions are going to, for sure, shout. And some of these are in very contentious states as well, right? But it had to be done. And it's something which is extremely necessary because, see, the nature of war has changed, right? You don't have the 1970s or 80s sort of a war where the army moves in and the air force comes in later and then the navy does some random stuff on the side, right? You don't have that. Balaji Srinivasan has a very nice thread on modern war. You should definitely check it out on Twitter. The newer battle units are going to be fully integrated, right? And with these kind of needs, I mean, it's absolutely essential for us to have indigenous research and development on arms and ammunition and other kinds of warfare, right? I mean, because India is the second largest importer of arms, right? 9% of global arms imported is from India, right? Now, this doesn't pair well with us being Atmanirbhar, right? So it's absolutely essential that research and innovation happens on this. And it's fantastic that, this was launched on Vijayadashmi, right? The triumph of good over evil. And all of those companies that you mentioned, for instance, Gliders India, right? I mean, they may very well expand to manufacturing drones, right? Which are going to be the new sort of a mechanism for warfare and so on, right? And these will have trickle down effects on other parts of the economy, other sectors, and on the society as well. So it's just a fantastic thing. I mean, these 7 PSUs will have the functional autonomy, right? And they will have competition from the likes of Tata or Mahindra or Bharat Forge and so on. And the government, I mean, the Prime Minister also specifically asked for startups to work with these companies, right? So, which means, the likes of Ara one-man systems that we, had, could potentially work with some of these governments. I think they already are, right? Could work with these PSUs. And also to indicate that they're absolutely serious about this, there's an order book of 65,000 crores, which is a very significant amount as well. So all in all, I think this decade is going to be very, very interesting from a defense sector perspective. And we're going to see a lot of innovation and a lot of jobs and a lot of money flow in, actually.
Right. No, I just want to add like one comment on that whole Atmanirbharta, right? We're see, earlier people used to think that, the global choke point for world trade is the Strait of Hormuz, right? For the oil ships that are passing through it. But recently we saw that Taiwan is now the, modern day choke point, considering it's the only manufacturing space for silicon chips, right? So strategically it's such an advantageous situation, and the whole entire US and China tensions are also building up, right?
Yeah. No, and look at the aspiration also, right? I mean, we're not just saying that we will basically take care of our needs, right? We're also saying that we should become an exporter, which is amazing, actually, really, really amazing. So yeah, this is great
Right.
stuff.
So yeah, also the government is moving towards providing insurance coverage to the missing middle of over 40 crore population with medical insurance, and has shortlisted 21 private insurers who may offer a highly subsidized cover as part of a pilot project on a voluntary basis. The Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana presently benefits around 50 crore poor families in the country with a free insurance cover of rupees 5 lakhs for a family. Now, this termed as a PMJ clone cover, this will be offered by the commercial insurers to over 40 crore additional people on voluntary basis, which will be in the nature of self-funded affordable cover. Now, these will be group covers for the entire family of those who do not currently have any kind of medical insurance. And this is also a step towards the universal health coverage that we covered in last week's roundup. The 21 shortlisted insurers include the likes of Max Bupa, Royal Sundaram, and other leading private and public insurers. They have been asked to give details like the proposed group they plan to cover, their geographical location and product features, premiums, etc., and network, among other things. So, what do you think? You think this universal health coverage will soon become a reality in the next few years?
Oh, there's already been a lot of takers, right? And look, I mean, education aside, I mean, healthcare is one of those massive costs for any family, right? And I do believe that universal healthcare is something very aspirational and something that the government should strive for. And it's great that they're doing it through this kind of a mechanism, right? As you said, PMJ is the largest health assurance scheme in the world. They guarantee about 5 lakhs per family per year, and a lot of people have benefited from it, right? 50 crore beneficiaries, and so on. So this is going to have a huge impact for sure in the ecosystem itself. And you know I mean, there is some discontent in terms of claims not being settled with hospitals and so on, right? And that they've not been reimbursed, and stuff like that, or that the services are not at par with the private hospitals. But to me, I mean, I think those chinks will be ironed out, right? I think directionally, it's a very, very good move, right? And we've seen amazing adoption on this front as well, right? So something like 22,700 hospitals have been, affiliated with that, and e-cards have been issued, and so on. So yeah, see, this will also ensure that your last mile, whatever you want to do on the healthcare front, will get sorted as well. And with the health stack coming in as well, these things will get a lot more seamless and a lot more streamlined. So yeah, it's fantastic stuff.
While there has been a considerable amount of push on the fundamentals of society, right? The government is also looking to formulate a comprehensive policy on cryptocurrency, right? And I think in the winter session of the parliament, the crypto bill will be tabled. There was a report which was put out by Kantar data analytics firm that nearly 83% of urban Indians are now aware of cryptocurrency, and the segment has seen 16% of ownership. Around 90% of Indians surveyed intend to invest in cryptocurrency in the next 6 months. And roughly 2 in 10 urban Indians are likely to be crypto investors just by the first quarter of 2022. In a report put out by NASCOM, there are 15 million retail investors in India in the crypto tech space, and they presently comprise over 230 startups. But given the current scenario, mass scale adoption of crypto will still take a long time for a country as vast as India, right? And we're so much rooted into fiat money. And currently, more than 50,000 professionals are working in the Indian crypto industry, and the sector is likely to create 30% more jobs in the coming months, according to the same report. But there's this gap that needs to be filled, right? Both on the talent side as well as from a regulatory perspective. And there was a nice tweet by Balaji Srinivasan, who is a former CTO of crypto exchange Coinbase. He tweeted that he's moderately bullish on India and extremely bullish on Indians with regards to crypto. So, like, what's your take on this?
So it's a perfectly reasonable position to hold, right? And also because the regulation is evolving, and Indian government is famous for bans, right? I mean, if we don't understand something, we'll first ban it and then we'll think about it. Now, see, for a country like El Salvador or Nigeria, I mean, there are much, much, much smaller, much less complex, right? And not so much integrated with the world economy that they can do these things, right? They can adopt crypto, adopt Bitcoin, and so on. But something as large as India, as complex as India, I mean, obviously it's going to take time for people to understand, right? Because one thing we have to remember is that the government has monopoly on two things: violence and money. That's it, right? And it will not renege on these things, right? Governments have to understand, how they can do some of this monetary policy and so on, right? And having said that, Balaji has written a fantastic piece called why India should buy Bitcoin, and in which he argues about 7 8 points, saying that India should perhaps launch a digital rupee and back it with digital gold, which is Bitcoin, right? And this could help us on multiple fronts. It could safeguard national security, prevent deplatforming, attract international capital, deter financial fraud because everything is accounted for. There's a chain of transactions, right? And it could also accelerate technological development and so on. So it's a amazing article. Definitely makes the case for why India should adopt crypto, right? And I think the primary thing is that, look, with all of the stuff that's happening to the dollar, right? I mean, um, instead of pegging it to the dollar, I mean, why not peg it to Bitcoin? And India has historically very high reserves of gold, right? Something, I don't know, 9 10% of the gold's reserves or something like that, right? uh, so instead, use a small percentage of that, or peg a small percentage of that on Bitcoin. And Bitcoin, since it's not controlled by any particular government and it's completely, like, decentralized, it could offer us more bargaining chips in that sense. I think is the primary core of the argument. And I don't know. I mean, it's see, crypto will continue irrespective of governments, right? It's just a genie out of the bottle situation, and it's, you cannot stop it, right? I mean, people are people will find ways and means around it, and it's for India to kind of decide whether we need to address this proactively. I think which is what is going to happen, right? I mean, the winter session, I think things have come to a head. Multiple bodies, including India Tech, has submitted papers and so on, right? And the hope is that the government will listen to more reasonable people and be proactive on this front, right? And it could actually be beneficial, because you cannot prevent this. There is simply no way you can prevent this. It's short of switching off electricity en masse, you can't prevent this. So which means you might as well adopt it, and you be proactive on gaining some of those benefits. So yeah.
And also, I think probably 2023 will be the year where we see a lot of crypto startups coming up. Already, we are seeing what the likes of WazirX, CoinSwitch,
Yeah.
Kubit, and all of these companies are doing. And last week we also spoke about Chingari, starting its own coin to fuel its e-commerce storefronts, right? So it's just inevitable in some.
No,
some
there's phenomenal, startup innovation on this front, right? Look at Polygon, for example, right? $1 billion plus startup, and Indians have taken to it. I mean, there's a lot of capital that can also flow in through crypto, and we're going to see a lot of startup innovation, and some of the funds have started, like, being really serious about this, like mainstream funds. I'm talking about Axel type of people, right? They are, like, serious about this stuff. So yeah.
Great. So, in other news, Tata Motors are making headlines again last week. They announced that private equity group TPG, along with ADQ of Abu Dhabi, has agreed to invest in their EV division, rupees 75,000 crore, or close to $1 billion. And with this, the business valuation increases to $9.1 billion. Now, the board has already got the shareholders' approval to separate its passenger vehicle business in March. And with this funding, they'll create a separate EV only arm in which the proposed investment will come in the next 18 months. Now, this new EV company will be asset light and will house only the technology and future IPs, while the manufacturing will be housed under the passenger vehicle division and will be paid a fee, of course. Now, Tata Motors has already been a domestic market leader in the EV segment with 70% share with just 3 models, right? And also, if you look at it, TPG's investment is through the recently raised $7 billion climate fund, called Rise Impact. And former US Treasury Secretary Hank Paulson serves as its executive chair, along with the fund's co-founder James Coulter. And this was like great news for Tata Group in general, right? Tata Motors touched a 52-week high of rupees 519 on Wednesday session, and the shares have risen almost 50% in just last week. Now, as a group of companies, right, I think the Tatas are really leveraging various companies within its umbrella to create an entire ecosystem around EV. And this is something we have been talking, right, building the entire EV infrastructure in India. So how do you see this going forward?
This is again fantastic news because the cost of innovation will come down, right? More capital, more participants, the cost of innovation will come down. People don't have to develop everything in a full stack fashion. They can get into specific aspects of the value chain that are more suited for them, right? So you don't have to develop everything from batteries to charging stations to cars to after services and whatnot, right? Uh, there's a fantastic article that a friend of mine, Rajiv Mantri, has written on Tata called Tata Group, India's first venture capitals, in which he talks about the fact that look, while Tata has uh, historically invested in conventional businesses like steel and so on, they've also were very very innovative in the fact that they were investing in biotech and AI and talking about these things in the 80s, right? Which is again phenomenal. And you've seen how the market has reacted to this news as well. So, which is again very positive. People are gung ho about it. The share has gone up significantly, right? Do you own some Tata Motors?
I was shocked when I saw a notification from my trading app that hey, stocks are there. Okay, which stock was this? So yeah.
So yeah, we know who should pay for the next party then. 70% market share. I think the Tata Nixon has done really, really well. Right, they have another couple of models coming up. I think the Tigor has been launched as well, based on the Ziptron technology, as they're calling it. It'll be very interesting to see, because see, this is again the largest auto manufacturer in India who's voting on EV, right? We've seen Maruti Suzuki, for example, which said that we'll wait and watch, right? Now that Tata has stepped into the fray, and Mahindra already has investments in this, it's likely that all of the rest of them, and Hero as well. Hero has invested in a few of these EV startups and so on, right? Ather and so on. So we see a lot of them coming into this, and by 2030, I think I'm positive that a lot of the vehicles on the road will be EV vehicles.
And also, the reason for the Tata Motors share price was also their earnings from the Jaguar and Land Rover businesses, right? They just managed to completely turn it around on its head and change it from a net loss making to a net profit making company.
That's huge, actually. That's huge, because the Land Rover thing has been a white elephant for them, right? I mean, and with everything that's happening in China, where the quality was not up to mark, and this whole semiconductor delay and everything, right? It was they were pretty badly hit on that front. If they've been able to revive that, that's just remarkable.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about some startups now. Merchants commerce platform Pine Labs has folded into the payment gateway business with the launch of the new platform called Plural. And with this launch, Pine Lab is now competing directly against the likes of Razorpay, PayU, Builder, CC Avenue, and Paytm. The Pine Labs has launched three products under this: Plural Gateway, Plural Checkout, and Plural Console. And its payment gateway business is a major offering and a natural progression for its merchant base, which has 5 lakh users. And they receive payments using the suites of payment collection services. Plural Checkout is a mobile SDK intended to boost payment gateway performance for Android and iOS users, while Gateway will enable a single payment dashboard for merchants for all kinds of payments, right from UPI to credit cards and debit cards. With this, Pine Labs also fills the last missing piece in its payment suite. And what's really good is that Plural has signed on customers, right, such as Chroma, Cred, iPhone, OnePlus, Vivo, Samsung, and even Reliance Digital. In time, I think it aims to rope in large government institutions, including e-commerce and financial services company as well. So if you look at this, right, we have spoken about Pine Labs quite a lot earlier this year, right? And I think they have successfully managed to cover the entire customer journey on its platform, right? Roshan, I think you're on mute.
Hey, sorry, I was on mute. Yeah, I mean, we've covered Pine Labs in some detail, and actually, I was checking out a tweet by Noah Pepper last week, and I think he heads the APAC business for Stripe, and they are making significant investments in India as well, right? They've hired a few key leadership positions and so on, and so we've often told that Pine Labs is India's Stripe. And we've mentioned their loyalty business, the credit business, financial services, and everything. So this is another addition, bolsters their offerings, and it will be very interesting to see what happens.
Yeah. Pioneer was also one of the first few fintech unicorns that were made in India. And last week, then just the number of unicorns in 2021 went up to 33 companies. The latest ones being Dekho and Mobikwik. So Dekho has closed a funding round of $250 million, and this was led by Leapfrog Investments. This round includes 200 million in Series E equity and 50 million as a debt in its pre-IPO round. Now, Dekho is targeting a double-digit market share in India's pre-owned car space, and over the next 5 years, I think they will be expanding, much more. We have seen the demand for used cars increase since the beginning of the pandemic. As many as 4.4 million cars were sold in the Indian market every year. And the segment, which is currently dominated by unorganized players, is estimated to double by 2026. So there's like a lot of things up for grabs. Even Mobikwik, right? I think they recently filed their IPO for 1,900 crore rupees. They turned unicorn after a secondary transaction that valued the company at $1 billion. The transaction was led by former Blackstone India head Matthew Syriac, who doubled down on Mobikwik at almost twice the price he had invested in the startup earlier this year. But this was also facilitated by Mobikwik's employees who decided to exercise their ESOPs in the secondary sale. So yeah, a lot of interesting things happening. 2 more unicorns added this week. What's your take? Do you think like this is a bubble, and people should be getting more cautious about it, or yeah? What's your take?
I mean, there's a lot of capital in the market for sure, right? I mean, there's a lot of liquidity, and bubble or not, I mean, I will leave it for better minds to decide, right? I have no opinion on that. But I must talk about Mobikwik, right? I mean, fantastic business. It was launched in 2008, just after the financial crisis, and we often talk about founder market fit, right? I mean, this is a classic case of that. So Upasana Taku was working in PayPal in the US, launched multiple businesses in US, Europe, and she got back to India to start this business, right? And one of the first few wallet businesses, you should say, right? And since then, they've moved on from just being a wallet to plenty of other things, right? One of the first companies to say that, look, I mean, we're not going to just give cashbacks, or we're not going to give any cashbacks. We're going to look at financial services on top of that, right? And I was listening to a podcast where she said, we address the underserved segment, right? I mean, there is a large segment of India which probably earns 18 to 40,000 a month, and these people again can afford a lot of financial services that they're deprived from, because the credit structure in India is set up in such a way that banks really don't know who's credit worthy, and they can't really serve all of the last mile customers like this, right? So Mobikwik has a lot of interesting products for them. They've pioneered the whole digital credit aspect. I mean, they have tons of data from transactions and so on. So they're offering these small loans, 5,000, 10,000, 12,000 type of loans, right? And they already have 10 lakh plus customers on that front. They're also giving micro insurance, which is 20 rupees, 50 rupees type of insurance for 1 lakh cover for certain specific diseases like dengue and so on and so forth, which are again, very frictionless, very seamless as well, because of 2 reasons. One is that, Mobikwik already has these customers. They're not really spending on CAC as much, right? Unlike someone who goes out there and sets out to, build these financial services products, right? So they already have these customers transacting, and it's not a separate buying experience as well, right? It's as simple as, okay, I paid for something. I mean, I have another, prompt there saying that, do you want to buy X, Y, or Z, right? So it's a very seamless experience. And one thing that Upasana said made a lot of sense, which is that there are 50 million credit cards in India and about 800 or 900 million debit cards, and the 50 million credit cards spend as much as the 900 million debit cards, right? Which is a amazing stat if you look at it. So we've often spoken about the white spaces, right? I mean, this is one of those huge white spaces, which is the whole credit financial services for the 30-40 crore Indians that are not served by the conventional banks and NBFCs and so on. So yeah, phenomenal business, and I will definitely be applying for this, and hopefully I get it. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, I mean, you have had a bad streak of luck with IPOs, so yeah. So in other news, virtual and hybrid events platform Hubilo on Tuesday said that they have raised $125 million in funding, led by Alkion Capital. Lightspeed Venture Partners and Bolton Capital also participated in the round. Hubilo was launched in 2015 as a cloud-based offline event management platform. right? But I think they pivoted to virtual event platform in February last year, of course, due to the pandemic. The company reworked its entire technology stack in 26 days to design an event platform, right? But this fresh funds will be used
Wow.
to its growth by developing new business functions and also advanced innovations on its platform. They'll also be setting up new offices in key regions and expand operations, in addition to increasing the overall employee count by 150%. So hiring is definitely back. Uh, Even Resha Mandi, which is a silk tech startup, has raised $30 million as part of its Series A funding round, which was led by alternative investment manager Creation Investments. Now, just a year old, Resha Mandi is digitizing the silk supply chain and providing a full stack support to people in this industry, including logistics, finance, and scientific testing to stakeholders. They have already onboarded 35,000 small businesses spanning across farmers, small and medium enterprise manufacturers, and retailers onto its supply chain in just 15 months of its operations. They have helped increase small business incomes by 35 to 55% and has pushed the use of indigenous raw silk dramatically. I think recently you spoke with Mayank Tiwari, who is the co-founder and CEO of Resha Mandi, right? And I can imagine like that must have been a really interesting conversation since we don't see these companies every day. Can you tell
So it
us a
was
bit?
it was a fantastic chat. Uh, just abstracting from this, I had tweeted a thread, last week, which is that entrepreneurs are not just satisfied, running managed marketplaces these days. I mean, they're going really deep. They're developing full stack solutions, right? Like what Resha Mandi is doing in Silk, for example, right? With deep tech, with the platform, software, and financing as well. And you're going to see a lot of these small businesses in India that are running, a few lakhs worth of business, few crores worth of business, really, really catapult because of this kind of innovation. Because they were extremely resource constrained and sorry, I have a call. They've been extremely resource constrained, and now startups like this are really, really helping them with the whole scaling journey, right? So Resha Mandi is a very interesting business. Deep tech, as I mentioned, they have IoT for farmers to better optimize for their crop, the mulberry crop, which is fed to the silkworms, right? And they're also helping these weavers and people on the production side, improve the grade of the weave or the fabric itself, right? And the aspiration is that they will move on from silk to cotton to other fabrics also, and do what they've done in this silk ecosystem. They're going to layer in financing as well, which is again pretty fantastic because a lot of these guys are part of the informal economy, right? I mean, they're not farmers don't pay taxes, right, in India. I mean, so they're also not served by conventional, banks and so on. So Resha Mandi has data to ascertain whether someone is creditworthy or not. So they will layer financing on that. So again, amazing company. I mean, they've just raised Series A of 30, and in just a span of 30 million, that is, in just a span of 1 year, I think they've gone from 12 people to 170 people. uh, Very comprehensive chat with Mayank, the founder. I'm really excited for this podcast, which is going to come out soon. And you mentioned Hubilo, right? I mean, which is again a very interesting business. Huge round, 125 million. We don't see that very often, right? And shout out to all of the folks in the event industry. These are folks that you and I work with, Gunjan, and perhaps COVID hit them harder than any other industry, right? Because their entire business was based on offline. And the way some of these folks have been able to pivot to virtual events and to virtual technology like, Hubilo is pretty remarkable, and we're going to see we're going to see use cases develop on virtual conferencing. So I think Zoom has solved the fact that, two people can chat on video very well, right? You're going to see perhaps like a Zoom marketplace, or something of that sort evolve, right? Once this technology gets commoditized, I think a lot of use cases are going to develop, and virtual events is one of those very key developing use cases. It could even be patient treatment, plenty of other things. So I'm personally very excited about this, right? So yeah, I mean, no wonder you've seen such a big round also.
Right, and just imagine, right? Once the entire virtual events platform gets integrated with the whole AR and VR tech, the entire experience will just move on to a whole different level. And
Oh, for
I
sure. For
Facebook with
sure.
and all, they are already trying to, and even
Yeah.
Reliance Geo with their Geo glasses, they're experimenting with this tech.
Yeah.
Right?
No, for sure. I mean, virtualization will be the next leap forward, right? See, VR is one of those things that has always been the next big thing for like the last 15 years. Right, and it has never come to be, right, except for all of the CD, whatever kind of goggles that you used to get and so on. But I think if that takes off and if that gets like prevalent and gets commoditized and a lot of people start using it, I think it'll probably take this virtual concept to a whole other level.
Right. Okay, so I mean, these are some really large size checks, right? And even venture capital funds are raising funds in the market. Six Sense Ventures, which wanted to raise a 900 rupees crore fund in 6 months ago, they're now planning to close that down at nearly three times that amount. And the highlight is that this is only from domestic investors. Six Sense Ventures was founded by Nikhil Vohra, who is the former IDFC executive. And this is the third fund of the company, and they are planning to close it at rupees 2,500 CR. From this new fund, they plan to make about 35 investments with an initial check size of 40 to 50 crore. And this can go over to rupees 100 crore, including follow on rounds. Now, they want to back early to growth stage companies, and its portfolio comprises companies like Bombay Shaving Company, Bira, Viva Foods, and Sachin Tendulkar backed entertainment arena Smash. So, with this, Six Sense would be the largest domestic fund, raised in India. And I think the timing really couldn't be better given the current investor sentiments. Do you think we'll see more such news of venture capitalists raising more funds in the market?
Yeah, best time. Absolutely the best time, right? I mean, as I mentioned, a lot of liquidity in the market, and it's going to continue for a while, right? I mean, it's not like governments or whoever else is going to pull out cash immediately. So at least, I mean, this year I don't see any correction on this front. So yeah, absolutely the best time to raise a fund, to raise money, to get capital for sure.
Right. Okay. So there was, TCS has been like one of the largest, campus recruiters, right? But recently, I think they're going to skip campus placements this year. Abhishek Basumalik recently tweeted that TCS is keeping campus placement this year. And Gopinath, who is the CEO of TCS, he said that if students can go through the test, it doesn't matter where they come from. If this trend picks up across industry, a lot fewer people will be willing to pay up for studying at glorified placement agencies, right? Now, this has been like a major trend of, students joining this placement agencies, undergoing training for 4 to 6 weeks, and then getting placed into companies. But as people are getting more independent and with all the new opportunities that are coming up, how do you see this changing?
Yeah, I mean, look, colleges will have to strive harder, right? I mean, because if the likes of TCS hires about 40,000 people a year. If they stop going to campuses and they say that, interestingly, TCS can do this because they have a national test as well, and they have a database of 2 lakh plus students already on that database. So, I mean, if they start doing this, then I think colleges are really in trouble, seriously, because at this point of time, I don't see a need for a college aside from some laboratory work or some kind of collaborative work using the facilities as such, right? Because computer science, for example, I mean, you can entirely be self-learned, self-taught, right? And anyway, I mean, the stuff that they teach in colleges is pretty dated, right? So aside from fundamental science and engineering, like maybe electronics or whatever, learning CS in colleges makes absolutely no sense, and that too for 4 years at a time, right? So colleges will have to definitely reinvent themselves. Otherwise, I mean, they have tough times coming up for sure, right? Because this is just a step away from TCS saying that, look, I mean, we don't care about degrees. If that happens, then I mean, it's tough time for colleges, because I mean, essentially what they've said right now is that colleges don't matter, right? If they extrapolate that to say degrees don't matter, and as long as anyone passes my test, I'm good with that, then I mean, that's going to be the end of all of this engineering college boom in India, right? Which let's face it, I mean, in the last 10-15 years, I mean, has just simply mushroomed, and there's been a lot of positive impact on that front. But given that where we are right now, with edtech and e-learning and everything, I really don't see the need for a specific college, at least for a 4-year degree course for computer science, really.
Right. No, and this has been possible by companies such as Upgrad and the edtech sector in general. And even when the government put out the national education framework earlier, I think it was planning to transition the entire the basis of education from more theoretical to more application based learning, right? And I think these will be the skills that will be most relevant going forward.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So yeah, Roshan, we briefly spoke about your conversation with Mayank Tiwari, who's the co-founder and CEO of Resha Mandi, and I think this week we have some time scheduled with Mayank Kale, who is the co-founder and CEO of Loop Health. Right? What are some of the things, some of the questions that you will be asking him?
So Loop Health is a very interesting business. They just raised about 12 million Series A sometime back, which we covered in the Startup Operator Roundup as well. Right. And they are focused at improving employee wellness, employee health. And we've just spoken about how important insurance is in India, right? And how underpenetrated that space is. So, I'd be really curious to understand how Mayank is executing in this space, how they're working with some of the incumbents and making this happen, right? Interestingly, both Mayank's for this week coming up, right? Mayank Tiwari and Mayank Kale. Very good episodes. Both definitely different, right? In different spaces, but fantastic young entrepreneurs. So looking forward to this.
Yep. So yeah, so this brings up to the end of this week's roundup. This is a really interesting chat, Roshan. Thank you so much. A lot of bullish sentiments around all on crypto, on the various fundings that went on for the week. Folks, if these are the sort of news that you like reading on a day-to-day basis, or just curious to be abreast of what's happening in the industry, don't forget to subscribe to the Startup Operator podcast on your favorite podcast platform, as well as on our WhatsApp subscription, which is a free subscription where bite-sized content is delivered to you every week. We also have a good, interesting discussions over there, so don't forget to check it out. And yeah, again, we'll see you next week with some more exciting news from the Indian startup ecosystem.
Also, don't forget to check out startupoperator.in. That's our website for all of the content that we develop. And Gunjan, I told you that our roundups are getting longer, right? I mean, this is another 40-minute roundup as well. So a lot more optimism, a lot more news to cover, I suppose, right? So thanks again for joining, everyone, and look forward to seeing you guys next week.